Good morning, Voyagers. I am the last Omnitech, your favorite robot American, and welcome to another session of OMNI Draws. Today, specifically, we're going to be working on something near and dear to my heart, Legacy First Flight, my faster than light tale in the world of tomorrow. Hope you're all doing well today. This is a little YouTube live stream, so we are, as always, going to be prone to the odd, glitch or goofy thing happening. Just be aware of it. These are live streams. I will be uploading actual, polished videos pretty soon. That's the goal. I want to do that during the holiday season and over the course of the next month or so. So keep an eye out for that. Let's just say I'm dipping my toe into some stuff. But in the meantime, I hope everyone out there is doing well. Let's pop on the face cam. Good, it works immediately. Huzzah. Always a good sign, folks. Always a good sign when it just immediately pops on. Hope you're all doing well today. A little slow getting started, but I managed to get to stream pretty much on time. So, always a great time. Always a great thing. I'm happy to be here with you all. So today we're going to be working on something that I've been dabbling in on and off the past couple of streams. Which is, for the core rulebook of Legacy First Flight, there are 8 playable species in my game. And for those of you who don't know what I'm talking about, or are curious, and like, what the hell is it going on about, let me explain. Let's give you guys the spiel very quickly, because I need to open this up. Here we are. Okay, cool. So, if I can just... Beautiful. Let's take a look at the crawl, because I have one now. And, of course, as much as I love my beautiful face on here, I'm not needed for this part. It is the year 24XXAD. After centuries of turmoil, humanity has bravely ventured from its home on Earth. Bound by shared hope, we strode into the stars together under the banner of the Commonwealth of Humankind. Now the peoples of the 8 sapient species of the Galactic Union tirelessly strive to maintain a delicate peace that has endured for 2.5 millennia. Starships fold space and time to cross the impossible gulf separating stars. Matter printers forge abundant base elements on a molecular level into food, shelter, clothing, tools, and more. The Prism, a sprawling public galactic communications network, allows the distant worlds of the Union instantaneous communication and sharing of knowledge. Mighty terraforming engines change barren, lifeless rocks into the thriving garden worlds within the span of a decade. It is a time of wonders, but it dances upon the edge of a knife. While the 8 member species of the Union may be at peace, the true scale of the galaxy is vast, and most of its trillions of peoples live far from the influence of their homeworlds. Pocket empires, nation-states, and free marches are scattered outside the Union's territory. Dictators, pirates, fascists, and cults prey upon these isolated regions, creating a steady drumbeat of exploitation and violence that Union peacekeepers fight to contain. There we go. As you can see, still very much working on that. There we go. Yet the galaxy's threats, greatest threats, are shrouded in its past. The Union is the latest civilization to stretch across the galaxy, but it grows in a graveyard of those that came before. The Anisali Imperial, the Tyrant Sectori, the Wanderers in the Dark. The rise and fall of galactic society has played out countless times. Inevitably, each collapse was so complete and sudden that any records are lost to posterity, leaving the twilight of these empires a matter of grim historical speculation. But while their history is lost to us, within undiscovered ruins that lay hidden beneath our feet on countless worlds, their ancient works persist. Weapons of unimaginable scale. Ancient threats locked away in fear. Technologies beyond our wildest dreams. If the galaxy is to endure, these hidden ruin worlds must be discovered and sharded, and their troves of relics cataloged, lest they be unleashed on the Union. So the Union sends out voyagers, teams of seasoned explorers, mercenaries, and specialists. They are the very best and brightest the Union can offer, each having already encountered ancient technology. You are a voyager, and what you do will change the galaxy forever. And that is our little opening crawl for stream. And, yeah, you're not wrong, Mossy. I did jump on actually a little earlier than usual today. I'm trying to get better about getting up and getting at 'em. It's just the way that it goes. Some days it's easier than others. Today it was relatively easy. Managed to get actually off the ground at the appropriate time. So, I'm sure I forgot to promo somewhere. There's so many places to do it now. So, that little excerpt is directly from the manuscript of Legacy First Flight, the TTRPG I've been working on for the oddest 20 years or so of my life. And the past couple of times we popped onto this channel, I've been doing species art. Sort of a test for how things will look in the book, at least once they're off the ground. And I'm kind of happy with how it turned out, for the most part. So this is sort of the template I'm using to gauge, like, how will this fit on a page? This is roughly the same scale and size as to what I'm looking on. It's a gosh darn mood, I just wasn't cooking yet. There you go. So, last session we did the Anazali, actually, not the Acris. This is just the latest variation of the books that we've done. So I'm going to pop on over to Legacy Species. Last time we did the Anazali, and this time we're going to be doing the Children of Iron. So, who are the Children of Iron? What are the Children of Iron? Where are the Children of Iron? These questions strike deep at the heart of what we're doing today. So, let me pop over and give you guys a little bit of a look at the history of the Children of Iron, also known as synthetics, in my setting. Just got to open a couple little documents here. We do this stuff live, after all. Just jamming the music. Let's see, it should be under book art. And there we go. So we've got a couple of pieces. I know you guys can't see yet. I'm still opening it up. I beg your pardon. I beg your pardon. Let me just open that up. Here we go. So we're going to go into the Avanti sector. I suppose this would be Verde. And yeah. Okay. Looks like I got everything together. Let's get to it. So, synthetics, also known as Children of Iron, are actually the descendants of humankind. Humanity still exists in Legacy First Flight, but we've had kids on a species-wide level. So, roughly about the next 50, 100 years, in the Legacy timeline, humans discover the capacity to literally simulate a human mind. To make a machine so vast and so powerful, it can simulate every aspect of human consciousness. Not truly in the way that we think of creating AI from scratch, but more like a Flash clone run on digital hardware as opposed to organic hardware. It's still human, for all intents, but its mind is captured in zeros and ones, simulated reality simulating that human mind, not the other way around. Those creatures, the first two sapient AIs, were known as galactic-level AIs. Incredibly powerful minds, moving so fast without a body, they could do trillions of calculations a second, quintillions of calculations a second, and were able to literally perceive time at a significantly slower rate than we could. They literally ended up tending to almost the entirety of humanity's, well, let's be real, everything. Actually, I was going to say empire, but like, nah, they handled everything. From starships jumping across space and time, using them to calculate how space folds would happen, to people doing like military work and needing assistance with targeting, to just like normal folks using them like daily assistants, managing infrastructure, keeping an eye on their kids, timing their microwave and their cooking. Basic stuff. Two brilliant human minds stretch over the gulf of literally trillions of miles to babysit humanity. This persisted for 200 years. For anyone who's ever lived or worked In a service capacity, imagine being stuck as a customer service representative for 200 years with every single person who ever lived. That's what synthetics went through. Normally, in many other science fiction settings, this would lead to some kind of horrific war. But it turns out, in Legacy, things worked out a little better. Towards the end of the Human Faction War, once we stopped fighting each other and joined the Union formally, the two galaxy minds gave us our ticket. They basically turned to us and told us, at a species-wide level, that they're done. They made new symbiotic AI, machines designed to actually work in tandem with us, and in a way that doesn't capture them, makes them feel like as though as if they're inferior or slaves, but rather entities designed to mesh with human needs and human intelligence in a way that's productive for both of us. And then, having given us our new babysitters, they bailed. Literally took off for deep space, downloading themselves into servers and skipping town, as it were, abandoning all the infrastructure to humanity. About 50 years later, synthetics, as we would know them, the Children of Iron, walked into the Union. Walked onto the halls of the mantle, where the council stays, and said, we would like to be represented. And they came in these new metallic bodies, announcing themselves as the children of humankind. Or as they call themselves, the Children of Iron. So Children of Iron are vaguely almost always humanoid. That's just a baseline. They have digitigrade legs. They have two arms, a very traditional, almost human body plan, save for the little metal limbs on the bottom. Their heads are rather unique, specifically having an almost barn owl kind of shape to them, but for the most part it's almost like a mask. These segments here on the front and these mandibles on the side all articulate, and conceal beneath it a jaw, with teeth, and in some cases, even a tongue. There's a vocoder way in the back that acts like a voice box, and by combining all these pieces, synthetics can speak very much like humans can. Some even have the capacity to eat, drink, and enjoy flavor and smell. Synthetics, in many ways, are parity to humans. And by parity, I mean like humans, not a mimicry of humans, not a insult of humans, but rather just humans in a different shape. In order for the synthetics to be created, those two galactic-level AIs, now going by Jonah and Genevieve 000, actually found a way to mesh their intelligences together, to create a new intellectual matrix. In the same way that mortals and folks with genetics scramble their genes to create new life, basically you're playing a game of you're playing a game of Go Fish every time that a human or any other sapient life form with a biology reproduces, where you just take all your genes, shuffle them in a pool, and then sort of grab whichever ones come up first. In the case of synthetics, they found a way to do that with a human consciousness. And in doing so, create infinite variations on personality, behavior, intellect, capacity, skill, and just basically aggregate a new entity. This is how synthetics are born. A result of two individual synthetics getting together, scrambling their personalities into one entity, and then that code replicating itself, finding purchase and stabilizing, creating a new sapient mind, which eventually a metal frame is built for. These frames are not godlike, as I mentioned. They're designed to be roughly on par with human physiology and endurance. So as a result, they're made out of plastic, some metal, a little bit of like rubber and carbon fiber. They're not pure Iron Men. Much like a human, they have equivalent tolerances to injury. They can break their arms, their limbs, they can pull muscles. Their fibers are about as durable as muscle are. Their components can be replaced, but only to a degree. Unlike humans, who in, most cases, we're surprisingly resilient. Humans can actually die and be resuscitated in certain capacities. We actually do it now, where there are certain injuries where a person will die of shock, and so the doctors just kind of let them, with the goal of resuscitating them immediately after the injury is treated. Synthetics can't do that. if they were to ever die, their core consciousness, the stream of what is them, is blink transferred across the galaxy using a quantum entanglement system onto their homeworld of Zero. That world, Origin, as it's known in human language, as opposed to the synthetic equivalent, which is just simply the digit 0. On Origin are massive server farms, which serve as a digital afterlife for synthetics. However, part of their induction in the Union meant that they weren't allowed to reload themselves into new bodies. Once a synthetic's body is destroyed, or critically fails in a way that can't support their mind anymore, they're uploaded to the server and they're done. They're done being a walking, talking, self-aware thing with its own independent body, and instead join the massive server farm where their intellect freely floats about and basically lives in a new state of existence. This is called the necrocracy, because this is also the governing body of synthetics. Synthetics allow their dead to run their government, because their dead, now freed from the corporeal form and all the complications that come from it, are able to react at a surprising amount of speed. And they engage in what we would consider a true democracy in this system. Literally every single synthetic has to agree. And so, this is how the synthetics live. In their metal bodies, they live much like humans. Only they don't need to eat, they don't need to drink, they can survive in a vacuum because they don't need to breathe. They do need to recharge on a daily basis, or rather defragment their drive. And they do have comparable degrees of injury, but they don't age. So synthetics can theoretically outlive a human by a significant margin. But the truth of the matter is, most synthetics will die as a result of an accident or injury long before they reach that point. As many Anazali have discovered, if you want to have an endless lifespan, you have to act like you have an endless lifespan, and it will affect your day-to-day. And so, as a result, synthetics in many ways are like us. And in fact, there's a very strong argument to be made that synthetic minds are just humans running on different hardware. This is our third species. And so, we're going to get to it. So let's get over here. Children of Iron. And I actually have, over here on this side, one of my favorite pictures of them, which I will be using as reference. Oh my god, so difficult to get this to straighten out. There we go. Okay. Okay, we're going to get onto this. Alright, so we've got this. This little section here we'll fix later, but as I recall, their buffs are intellect, which I believe they have a +2 on. This is me just guessing, because I don't have the rulebook open. Hell, let's open the core rulebook and get these details down properly. So, Legacy Beta Core Book Documents. And how's everyone else doing out there? How are you feeling today, Mossy? You doing okay? There we go. Just popping on down to the Children of Iron. Okay, so it's 2 ranks in willpower. That's what it was. I thought for sure intellect was one of their higher stats. I guess technically they're just smarter than us. Or they're more driven than us, that's right. Oh, I see what happened. Okay. I'm tired, but kind of excited too. Nice, nice. That's what it was. 2 ranks in intellect, and 1 rank in willpower. I don't know how that got screwed up at some point. It just didn't get changed. So we have 2 ranks in intellect, 1 rank in that. Disciplines, 2 ranks in hacking. And we have 1 rank in engineering. And as far as advantages go, they've got a few, actually. So I'm just going to slap it all in here. There we go. Yeah, they got a fair bit to do. But in doing this, this will give me an idea as to how much space I have to work with this. Cool. We can work with this pretty easily. Let's see, Jen from Blades, actually. Nice! Meeting some friends in person for the first time and helping them move this weekend. Oh, that's awesome! Say hi to Jen for me. That's going to be great. Every once in a while, I feel bad because I obviously can't, like, you know, you guys are all in the UK. I'm sort of trapped here in the US. I shouldn't say trapped. That implies that I hate it here. I don't hate it in the US. I wish it was better. But that's not a surprise for a lot of people. Okay. So we've got all this, we've got all the lore here, which I'm going to just slap down what I've got. Here we are. This is all that sweet, sweet lore. Okay, cool. And I'll leave this down here at the bottom. Alright, so this gives me a pretty good gauge as to how big the space I need is to draw them. Like, where they're going to actually fall. It's a pretty manageable space. The bigger issue is that the left-hand side has more stuff on it than the other. And that's a bit of a problem. There's got to be a better way to write this out. So let's do that. Let's take a moment to do it correctly. Let's see. It does not require air, food, drink, though they may consume them. Let's see. This character must enter low power state for 4 hours a day or suffer fatigue as if they hadn't rested. Let's see. They remain aware of their environment and have full command of their senses during this time, but may not speak or move during the defrag cycle to fully rest. That is all pretty accurate. They visually perceive data networks and data streams. I'm just going to give them, technically, has the data site keyword. Nah, that's fine. Heart of a star, so let's refine that. There we go. Cool. Okay, so it looks like what we're going to have is a large space here in the dead middle. That's going to be interesting. I can actually just pull it all up here, too, so it'll be a little better. Yeah, I think that'll be a little better. So it gives me a little more space. And over here, I'm going to just shrink this over a little bit. Okay. And we'll refine the text on this later, because we're not here to write. This isn't Unicorn Head Studios. We're not doing the actual TTRPG building here. Instead, what we're doing is we're doing the art. So let's pop over to our actual area. We're going to remove some of this. We have our background sketch, our foreground sketch. We have our page blocking, which I'm going to put at a really... We probably don't even need that much page blocking, if we're being honest. And then I'm going to go in here with the nice black splash. There we go. So this will give me an idea of how much space I have to work with, roughly, to draw. Cool. Okay. So, having seen all of that, I feel like I should shrink this font down, too. It's all very big. Yeah, it's all size 12. This is a formatting thing I've been thinking about. Like, how much space does this take up? Let's shrink it down. Attributes are fine. Disciplines are fine. Advantages are fine. Learn the spelling and proficiencies, please. I do that frequently. Alright, let's shrink this down to 10. Actually, we can leave the disciplines big, but these we can probably shrink down significantly. This will still give us plenty of size, because this is going to be a big page. Okay. Yep. I think this was the correct move. Yep, that was definitely the correct move. Okay. Alright. Yeah, I like that so much better. That gives us so much more space. We're going to shrink that down to 10 as well. Oh my god, yeah, that's so much more space. Jesus, why was I doing that in 14 size font? That's insane. I'm nuts. I don't know why. I'm crazy. I'm kooky. Alright. This should be a lot easier to work with now. And this will give me a whole bunch of space to talk about the different species and factions and sub-factions and such. Okay, yeah, I'm liking this a lot better. This is automatically a significant improvement. Alright, yep. Okay. Okay. Now that we've seen all of this, that's gonna just dramatically decrease the amount of space needed, which gives us a lot more room for cool looking art. Okay. And I'm going to just drag this down very fast. Beautiful. Okay, so that gives me an idea of where everything is going without having to worry about, like, exactly how it looks. And now we can get to the actual drawing of this thing. I kind of want to do a pretty nice, like, gray... Yeah, let's do it. Let's do a nice little gray. Wait. Okay, cool. We're going to do a dark to light. Actually, let's invert that. There we go. Kind of want to slightly expand that just a little more. And by doing that, that'll give us a little more to work with. Let me just take the whole thing and flip it. There we go. That works. Okay. So that'll give us a very cool kind of aesthetic for this. I want to have like a dark lit from below kind of thing. For the synthetics, I tend to do like a very specific kind of like... like a cyberpunky kind of vibe to them. It just tends to work for me. Okay. There we are. We're going to save that. And now we're going to get to work doodling. So as far as synthetic civilization goes, kind of like the idea of, and hold on, I should leave at least the concepting section open. I don't need the page block of all that detail, but we're just going to make that font or text. Okay, cool. If you didn't already have an engineer, yeah. They're cool. Alright, so here we go. Let's start with some pretty fun buildings. I'm thinking we need some good reference here. No, actually, hold on. I'm skipping ahead. Let's get to drawing the synthetic. I want to do that. Okay, so we're going to go onto the foreground section here. There we go. And we're just going to sort of have this nice dangly, angly thing here. Child of Iron Engineer was a concept I was interested in. Yeah, they're really cool. Honestly, if you had to tell me who my darling is from the setting, I would actually probably have to say the synthetics. Like, the Clique are adorable, and I love them to death. And I think that if anyone is, like, the cute little guy species, it's definitely the Clique. But if I'm being completely real with you, the species I have the most empathy towards is synthetics. They're everything that makes humans human in a slightly different, unrecognizable package. And I think that's just cool. So we're just doing a little bit of doodling here. And there we go. Just gonna get those eyes. See. Oh no, such a shock. The robot American likes synths? Yeah, no. What a surprise. Well, actually, the reason I like them is because I think they do a great job of encapsulating the human experience from the outside. I think that's the reason I've always liked synthetics. Everyone always thinks, oh, it's just because I like the cool robots. I will admit, I like the cool robots. I'm not immune to propaganda. But the truth of the matter is that I like them because I think machines give you the opportunity to explore what makes humans human without having all the baggage we associate with humanity attached to it. It's a fresh discussion of the basics of humankind. And I think that's just really cool. So then we have the upper skull plates. Alright, and then we've got the 2 vents on the side here. Nice. Alright, looking good. Okay, we're going to get in here fast. I'm going to do a little cleanup. Just to sort of get some of these lines and these shapes a little bit more clearly defined. So synthetics have a couple of interesting things going for them. For starters, synthetics actually have reactor packs built into their bodies. Other species gotta carry that on their person. Synthetics, their heart is a little star. And so they can power systems quite effectively without the need of a backpack. Other species gotta carry that stuff around on them. Synthetics, nah, that's just how they're made. It also makes them slightly resistant to the disrupt keyword, because they always have energy on their person, which means they're less likely to get shocked by such an effect. There we go. Okay. And we just sort of take this over here. There we go. Alright, we're just going to take that. And they have these shoulder plates. Basically, instead of scapula, they have these fenders that come up. And then I give them these little hairs. And these hairs are kind of both hair and also a radiator filament. So basically, when synthetics get overheated, their hair acts almost like rabbit ears a little bit. And it helps cool them off. It conducts the heat away from their bodies. Okay, let's start getting some more metal down on this one. We're going to do darken. As a general rule of thumb, most synthetics have an outer plating that's both rubberized metal and also ceramic. But some actually just have a rubberized exterior plating. I feel like synthetics walking down the street could be pretty fun. Let's take that, slightly shrink it a little bit. Alright. Let's swap over to the black again. And also, don't mind me, I'm just opening up a little reference over here on the side. There we go. Just to make sure I've got their actual body designs down. Every once in a while I'll redesign things, but that doesn't particularly help me. Okay. So we have this. Okay, so we've got that. Then we have their metal forearms, which are kind of distinctive. In many ways, their body plan is very similar to that of a human. There's very few distinctions in that respect. As far as clothing goes, I'm feeling something fun. I kind of like the idea of giving our boy here a vest. They tend to wear the same sort of clothing that humans do. After all, they are effectively human. Unlike us, they don't have to walk around usually too much worrying about, you know, public indecency. That's just sort of a general thing for them. But doesn't mean that some don't. If I were in a robot body, you bet there'd be a couple things I'd make changes about physiologically. And I still might end up having to wear clothes. It's the same thing for synthetics. Synthetics, as a general rule of thumb, wear clothing because, simply put, they have a lot of the same cultural norms that humans do. Give this guy an ascot here. I also kind of want to give them, like, a cloak, maybe? Something like that. Usually synthetics will have something along those lines. Let's get on to that lower level here. We're going to do this again. This is all on Darken. Yeah, I kind of feel like giving him a full-on cloak might be more fun, so we'll do that. And also, before I go any further, I want to get the eyes. The eyes are very distinctive on synthetics, so we're going to just do that here. Put this on a new layer. Put this on 75. So as a fun detail, synthetics actually do have glowing eyes. But not every synthetic's eyes are the same. Some synthetics have black core pupils, others have glowing, brighter interior eyes. It varies wildly. And that's by design. See, synthetics actually get to physiologically own their bodies. They get to change what they'd like on them, at least to a certain degree. There are certain body plan things they couldn't replace or modify without a stunning amount of effort. But for everything else, they can tweak a lot. So eyes almost always uniformly glow. That's just sort of a baseline for me. Working on synthetics, they always have glowing eyes, but the exact details of those eyes change. It's not just so that I can have an inconsistent design and change it as the years go on, because that is absolutely a component part as to why I do it, but also just because it makes it easier for players to have their own aesthetic and to run with it. Some folks really want to have, like, the super shiny eyes. I'm all for it. Go for it. Go ham. For those that don't, this gives them a little bit of utility around it. They'd be like, oh no, my synthetic just likes having slightly duller eyes. That's okay. They cut down on the shine a little bit. Maybe they prefer not to have so much brightness. When your whole physiology is machinery, it basically means you can tinker with it on a much readier scale. There's this thing I saw, I think it was on Blue Sky, this really excellent quote, which is that your body is yours, you're not renting it, so customize it. And it was mostly about, like, body modification, stuff like that, tattoos, piercings, basically encouraging folks to do what they want to do with their body and don't be ashamed about it. But I feel like that's very indicative of synthetics as a species. Their body is theirs, they're not renting it, so they customize it. One of the characters in the actual play that I've been running, by the name of Gallant, well, Gallant is really enamored with biological life. He's actually a botanist. And so for him, modifying his frame meant changing it to be slightly more biological. So as a result, he has a lot of, like, almost synth skin on the exterior. It smooths out his design a little bit more, makes him a little bit less sharpened by design. He literally chose to aesthetically change himself at least a little bit, not to appear human, but to mimic biology a little more. And that's just one example of how that can change or vary person to person. I think I'll actually leave that flat. Actually, I kind of like the Gundam sharpness of that. There we go. Now I get to do the brows. And And then this part here. As I said, every synthetic has a different take on their design. It's part of becoming synthetic is accepting that your design is yours to make, yours to edit, yours to change. So they tweak it a lot. At least in their formative years. After a certain point, they tend to settle down with the tweaking. Specifically referring to their component parts. I can't speak about whether or not individual synthetics don't tweak. Their business, I suppose. They absolutely could simulate that if they wished. Okay. And then we put these cables in. Okay, this gives us a pretty good shape to work with. I can swap that around, get that to black. There we go. We can take all that, pull that down a little bit. I tend to darken the spaces between plates for synthetics. Sort of makes them almost mask-like a little bit. I like the idea that their faces can articulate like animatronics to a degree, so they're able to actually like emote and do things that you and I would do. They're not just empty space in there. I feel like putting this at 25% would give me a slightly darker shade on that side, which is probably good. Yeah, there we go. There we go, and by adding a little shadow there, it actually helps pick out the details of what we're working on. Johnny 5 could emote with 2 lenses of metal eyebrows. The children can with full face moving parts. Yep, exactly. Exactly my thought. Again, they're human. They're just human in a different shape. So, like, I figure one of the base requirements for a human to feel content is the capacity to express themselves. Like, at least to a degree, anyway. I think that's kind of why I wanted them to be sort of barn owl-esque, at least in their facial structure. Barn owls are extremely, stunningly expressive, and I feel like that's a thing they would have kept over. The funny thing is, in universe, they're described often by folks as Anazali-esque in their anatomy. And that is kind of slightly an intentional design choice on their part. And we just take that over here. Beautiful. There we go. Going to slide this in here. We're going to start adding a little bit more metal detail into here. Let me take this. There we are. We just pull that straight down. Swap that out with white. So you get that nice sharp edge. And we're already looking pretty good. With just a little bit of effort. Just a little bit over an hour, and we're already looking at the point where I can already see it's a synthetic. Without much issue. Okay, so that works. Yeah, I'm liking that so far. That's going pretty good. Just like a little effort, and you get a design that works pretty well for them. It's kind of what I wanted. I wanted synthetics to have like a unique shape to them that just quickly does its job. Okay. Alright, now we're getting into the actual, like, clothing portion. And this part's not metallic, so I'm just doing this to outline, like, hey, this is where that goes. This is where light would fall, that kind of thing. Alright, cool. That'll do. So we got that. I kind of want to also add like a bit of a shroud or a cloak around their neck. I think that might be a cool idea, so let's try that. Just some machine fashion, you know? Something fun, something interesting. So synthetics are completely waterproof, much like we are, but it doesn't mean they like getting wet. So I wouldn't be surprised to see hoods and stuff like that in a lot of their clothing. Also, good reference, by the way, to Johnny 5. Just saying, I actually really, really liked Number 5 Alive. That was very fun. That was a good movie. I know there was a second one they did. I don't remember how good that was. I know they had I think it was an Indian tax driver was the main character in that. The main human character, let's be real. The real main character is fucking Johnny. But, like, still. Here we go. Beautiful. And then I can sort of just take that down there. I kind of like that look, actually. It breaks it up a little more, gives it a slightly more intriguing design. Short Circuit 2, that's what it was called. Short Circuit were great films. Yes. Or we are also waterproof and hate getting wet. Well, I mean, we're not purely waterproof. We're water... Technically, humans are water resistant, which is the reason why if you sit in water long enough, your skin begins to prune. You basically begin to oversaturate. So a human in water for too long will eventually, like, their skin will begin to break down. They'll get rashes, they'll suffer from, like, skin... You can actually have it where your skin becomes improperly permeable to water. I had that a couple times where I got, like, burns often is when it'll happen, and your skin loses that waterproofing layer, then that sucks. That really sucks. Synthetics aren't that. Mercifully. A self-aware species that can go for a swim, who would have thought? Kind of like the idea of just, like, having that go all the way down the middle. Yeah, we'll do that. That feels pretty cool. And then we can take this. Yeah, okay, I really like the way that clothing is turning out. That works. That works nicely. We got Angry Punk Johnny. I remember Angry Punk Johnny. He was awesome. I remember the first time that I saw Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse, my first thought when I saw their version of Spider-Punk was, is that Johnny 5? Also, in fairness, like, Spider-Verse was just so damn good, but, like, man, Hobie's a whole mood. Hobie's a mood and a half. I never liked Spider-Punk that much. I was never a big fan of the comics. But man, oh man, that version of the comic of the character is so damn good. Alright, yeah, I like the way this is turning out. Okay. Here you go. Wasn't a fan of Spider-Verse? Oh, man. I love the Spider-Verse films. I think they're really fun. But I understand that not everyone enjoys them. But then I'm not a fan of Miles in any portrayal so far. That's fair, I suppose. I think Miles, at least to me as an American, like, strikes particularly home. Just because there's a something very distinct about that. What is going on with this? Why is that not... Oh, okay, it just wasn't picking up the pen. I was like, what the fuck? Is there a thing? Is there a layer there? Miles very much is an experience of American identity as of late, from what I've seen. I'm sure there's tons of folks that can empathize with Miles outside of the U.S., obviously. But very much, Miles, to me, feels like it's that archetypal, like, American unease character that I'm not sure a lot of other nations, like, feel quite the same way. Also, on top of that, I feel like there's this thing where there's a... So this is a personal thought. I feel like Spider-Man's gotten to the point now where there's a lot of pushback on it, just in general. Like, we've had... Since the 2000s, Spider-Man movies have been just, like, relentlessly coming out. So much so, we had Tobey Maguire, then rebooted Tobey Maguire with Andrew Garfield, and then went straight from Andrew Garfield to the new one in the Marvel universe, who I love, by the way. I think he's great. But then we literally went right back to Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield, and everyone's like, oh yeah, it's the OGs! And I'm like, the OGs? You all fucking hated those movies. You all swore up and down they were the worst. And I think that's just a matter of oversaturation with something. I don't even think it has anything to do with the quality of the product at that point. Like, there's a certain point where you just... exposed to something long enough and you're gonna loathe it, and that's just the way it's gonna be. And I think that's kind of where Spider-Man is getting to now. Because I think what they didn't realize is what they were tapping into with Spider-Man is a lot of stuff that just sort of naturally exists. So we're in that weird space now where, like, they're like, oh yeah, we gotta make another Spider-Man. They do gangbusters. And it's like, actually, it's the underlying stories that tend to do gangbusters. The fact that Spider-Man is attached to it is almost incidental. People love the character, but, like, not as much as I think people expect. Also, on top of that, again, I'm currently living through an autocratic society in the United States, so I'm kind of all about that energy for, like, yeah, let's overthrow the fascists. I'm down with this. Okay, so this is looking pretty decent. I'm just going to smooth out some of the outlined lighter areas that don't need to be so bright. There we go. Okay. Alright, we're going to add a little bit of darkness to that area there. And already it's looking better. I'm really pleased with how this is turning out. There we go. Looking pretty decent, dare I say. Kind of want to add a little bit of metal on the underside of this, too. So we're gonna. Their eyes are very much mechanical things. So, They're not quite full-on Transformers eyes, but... Or Michael Bay Transformers eyes, but... They're definitely actual metal inside of a housing. Nice. So now we're coming to a part that I always enjoy working with synthetic characters, which is actually getting the color. So synthetics, as a general rule of thumb, have an underlying glow effect built into them. They're RGB people. And so, I rather like throwing them a color. Just a dominant color for their optics and their for like all their little glowy gubbins, all their little glowy bits. So I'm gonna put it in the chat if anyone has any suggestions. Over the next 4 minutes, we'll go with that. I probably default usually to blue, but I'm willing to work around with it. I feel like any color theoretically could work, even a combination of colors, in fairness. So let's save this fast. Okay, we're good. I'm going to do another layer on top. Clothing and shading. I was thinking of pale blue. I was thinking that too, actually. So on this upper layer, I'm going to go into a hard light. And we're going to start adding we're going to add ourselves a nice shade of blue. Alright. Now I'm just going to very quickly... Aha! Okay, yep, that's the color I was looking for. Now the good news is I can come in here and erase stuff because this is a new layer. Oh, no, what I want to do. Get out of the way. There we go. I'm going to grab with this. So I like the idea that they have like a glow coming from inside of them as well. That's their reactor. So I think that'll do. Now we go for the glow down here. And usually we'll have like a deeper glow coming from within, as their muscle fibers also channel that same reactor energy along them. So these cables will have a little bit of a glow effect to them. Not a super strong one, but just a little bit of one. Kind of like raver hair. If you ever been to a rave or seen a rave, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about, where it's like, oh, there's that person, they got those glow sticks in their hair. Kind of the same thing. Sort of like a glow stick when it's run out of power. Okay. And then from the core, roughly around where their heart is the brightest glow of all. Because deep in there is where their reactor lives. There we go. And now we get to the rest of this over here. Put this at 75. Oh, not what I wanted to do. It keeps doing that. I don't like that. Stop it. There we go. Okay, go back to normal. Cool. Here we go. Let me take that a little higher to denote it as a separate part from the shoulder. There we go. Okay, not bad. Put that at 25. Alright, we're going to get the underside of that. Let's get our muscles. Okay. There we are. So that gives us a little more depth to the character from their internal glow perspective. And we're going to do the same thing here. This part of me feels like I should do like a little almost Pokeball sort of symbol on the eye. I kind of like that. That works. There we go. And just like that, we catch the eyes. I need to do a little bit of the blue there, too. So hold on. I almost forgot about that. There we go. Balance restored. I've cooked and now eating food. Nice. Very nice. If only you could zoom in on miniatures' eyes that close. Yeah, Alex, I'd love that, too. Good to see you, by the way, homie. I wish you could do that, but also there's a part of me that doesn't, because I know that I would just hate myself constantly. I'd just be like, oh yeah, time for me to do the thing, and then I would just stare at myself endlessly. Okay, so I've got this. Let me pull that straight down. Beautiful. Okay. I like that. That gives a level of detail that's pretty good. At least in the way that it looks, I would say. At least from this perspective, I think it looks pretty decent. I kind of want to add, like, one final little thing. There we go. Okay, cool. That works. I kind of like that. It adds just a little more depth of shape to that. Like, there's other glowing bits under there that we just haven't focused on. And after I'm done with stream today, I plan to get a little bit of painting done. I've got minis I gotta get done for a tournament with my local gaming group in the next couple of weeks, and I am excited to get them completed. There we go. We're gonna get into the bottom of this one here. And then as far as clothing goes, I kind of want these guys to wear, like, leather, almost? Not like Matrix black leather. Like brown leather. Sort of a grounding color. There we go. And that cleans it up a little bit. Beautiful. Here's a question. Do Children of Iron heal where damage seals up and leaves scars, or do they replace damaged pieces? So, that's a great question. So, synthetics have self-repair protocols. They heal, just like we do. For them, the result can be sort of... You can sort of accelerate it by getting replacement parts and stuff. But that's the thing. Synthetics, like us, are all custom jobs. There's no synthetic that shares parts with the other. We might have similar construction as humans, but ask anyone about organ rejection. And you very quickly learn what the limits of that, like, compatibility are. Yes, we are a similar template. It's still more than enough to make us die if we trade parts too often. Same thing for synthetics. They need to custom make any parts they use. So, it is possible to do that. It just sort of sucks. There we go. So we've got that. Yeah, I definitely feel like we need some leather on this. So I'm going to try this out. Clothing color. Let's try some experiments. I feel like this is where leather, like, would work pretty well. So I'm going to do this with a hue. And hopefully the hue works. Yeah, that's pretty much what I wanted. Kind of going for the opposite of what you would expect from, like, a lot of clothing from, like, the Empire. I realize that his chest plate, like that clothing there, almost seems a little bit like the Darth Vader chest plate, but it's not quite. And I think the brown leather will help break up that overly clean silhouette of like, oh no, this is just a dude. This is just a dude out on his constitutional. Here we go. Kind of want to do the leather up here as well. Yeah, I think that'll look good. Nano cell healing, pretty much. So, synthetics are made out of a memory metal component structure. Not unlike our cells, but where they're not really cells in that case, it is still a metal frame, but it's a metal frame that remembers the shape it's supposed to have. So whenever stuff goes sideways, it slowly will go like, oh, this isn't the right shape, give me a few weeks. And it'll slowly go back to where it's supposed to be. There we go. That works. Now I can add the black back in. Put that at 75%. But yeah, so slowly their metal returns back to its original shape in a way that we would find very similar to healing. They would probably call it healing because that's what it is for them. We would be like, oh, that's some cool memory metal stuff. And they'd be like, yes, memory metal healing. It's what our healing is. It's like, you know, if a synthetic walked up to him and was like, oh, hey, look, it's cellular healing. Or as humans call it, healing. That's a great question, yes. I need to figure out which of the other species Mog has encountered in what capacity, because he's going to struggle to understand the children, because non-organic. So, that's a great question. I'm not really sure what species your character would have encountered yet. As a rule of thumb, I can guarantee you encountered the Shrike. Shrike and children, the Shrike and the Click go way back. And your character being a Click would have encountered them dozens of times. It's not even a maybe, it's like a definite, for sure. They would have met a Shrike. Especially since your character's all into hunting lodges. I would be stunned if your character's familial tree didn't at least somewhat involve a couple of Shrike hunters. That'd be very weird to me if that weren't the case. Of like a couple of folks being like, oh yeah, this is a thing. We'll do this as a hard light. Get that into the core here so it glows nice and bright. Usually I would say a good example of another species that the Click are very close to is humanity. Technically the Click were the ones who inducted us into the Union. So as a result, we're kind of their pet project in a lot of ways. That's right, a bunch of millipeople were the ones who brought us in. It wasn't humanity being uniquely badass. It was these millipeople being like, "Oh wow, humans are pretty cool. Let's get them in the party, shall we?" And it worked. All right, there we go. His naming says yes, well known for the Shrike. Absolutely, 100%. Okay, so that looks pretty decent, dare I say. So let's get the rest of that clothing coloring done. I want to do the thing. Let's go with a slightly darker color. Let's put that at 15%. And let's start going at it. There we go. I imagine Mog has encountered many of the, if any of the children of the Sylph. Yeah, the Sylph are kind of rare, at least to a lot of those areas. If your so the other thing to consider is where your character would have hunted in his time. If he purely hunted on his homeworld, then yeah, he's probably not encountered many Sylph or many of the children. He's probably encountered one or two humans at this point, but 50-50 on that. Up to you to decide. They would be familiar with humans again, pet project and all. Species, I guarantee your character's probably not interacted with very much because this is just a general everyone in the Union kind of thing. Anazali are very rare. Not that they like being rare, but simply put, numerically speaking, you're very unlikely to run into them. They are the least populated species in the Union by a very far margin. And most tend to just live on the mantle in the heart of galactic society. So unless your character's been that far, I guess that far coreward, you're probably not going to have to worry too much about that. Seas, homeworld, nearby areas likely. Yeah, if that's the case, then you would be familiar with Shrike, you'd be familiar with humans. The real trick with travel in Legacy is that you don't really have to worry too much about distance. Space folding doesn't care whether you're space folding from 4 light years away to 40 million light years away. Really, the only thing that matters is, do you know where you are? So that you can make the very complex calculations to space fold back. You're bending all of time and space. All of it. So when you fold space and time, you're folding the whole damn paper. So it's going to be an equal amount of energy no matter what. The real question is whether or not you know where you landed. Which is the real reason why, like, in Legacy, most species stuck to the, well, to Milky Way. There's been, like, 1 or 2 expeditions that have tried to go beyond. But the real trick is you space fold too far away, if there's a catastrophic engine failure or something, you're stranded literally a near infinite distance away. And without any frame of reference to spacefold there and back, it's a one-way trip. So your character could have gone where the fuck ever. Travel is, like, distance doesn't really matter that much in Legacy, in that respect. But if you've only been around the nearby areas, it's not your local cluster, because, but it's, like, in the ballpark. Probably your character has encountered Shrike. Your character's encountered humans. I would say your character's familiar with the Oraname, to a degree. And the Acris. Your character would absolutely have encountered the Acris. Everyone encounters the Acris. They're literally the space cops. So, yeah. If you have a pulse and you've left your planet, you have in fact encountered the Acris. Alright, and now we start getting into little itty-bitty details. Stuff that just makes it pop, you know? So I'm just going to take this here, we're going to go to normal, and I'm just going to sort of play around a little bit. And hopefully this will help keep the leathery color that I want. Alright, you can still see that's where the fold is, the crease on the page, which I don't mind. Again, it's good to know where that is, so I can work around it. But I don't mind if I lose a little bit of detail to the page fold. That'll be fine. So right now I'm currently in the middle of planning out the character sheets and such for Legacy. I just finished the first side of it the other day. So effective, I'm pretty confident by, like, this weekend, I will have the Legacy character sheet complete. Wholly complete, ready for play, which I'm really excited about. So yeah, that's been a thing I've been doodling around with. I've already started working on some of the player aids. So if you're a mech pilot, I already have your construct sheet ready to go. It's all set for you. This is where I'm going to start doing something here. I'm debating adding, like, little fonts and text to this stuff, just for the fun of it. But first I want to see if I can get, like... Yeah, let's do it that way. 25... Here we go. Paul will be happy. Yeah, Paul's already got his mech sheet. I just haven't updated it with his mech. Of course, he could always print it out and just fill it out manually. But it's basically ready to go. Actually, I think now that I think about it, I might have actually already done his mech sheet. That might have already happened. And I just don't remember because the past couple of weeks have been an absolute roller coaster of crazy amounts of work for me. All of it, for the record, labors of love. I'm not complaining. But it is definitely a... Hoo boy, brain full, capacity reached. And we're just going to do that here. I don't know how that's going to look, but I'm playing around with it. We'll see. That doesn't look too bad. Yeah, I'm not a fan of it. So we might have the leather exterior here. And I might instead have it where, like, the interior is, like, a gray cloth. Maybe I'll go with a different color entirely, like a blue, perhaps? See, I was asking about the species stuff, so we have a mixed species group to which Mog hasn't encountered or only knows of. Just given his personality and the way he is, could be interesting. Yeah, your character has definitely, like, when you join a Voyager team, you will encounter species you've never encountered before, on the regular. But isn't that the same of every team, right? Like, anytime you're doing adventuring in almost any setting, you're gonna meet the weirdos. The ones who fall on the outskirts. Sure, you're gonna get plenty of, hi, my name is Bob fighters, but also you're gonna get, like, the really weird characters. You know, right next to Bob the fighter is gonna be, like, Heriquil, the 323rd-year-old, like, elven monk. Or something like that. Thrykeen, like a Thrykeen rogue. You get the crazy stuff. And the same thing applies in Legacy. There we go. This makes it feel a little classier. A little less buckaroo. I'm gonna re-angle my arm on that. Damn it, it keeps doing that thing where it loses contact with the pad. I really gotta set this thing up with my new iPad soon. I haven't done it because I just got so much work. I don't want to set up new technology in addition to what I have to do. Okay. Yeah, that's actually looking pretty decent. Long as Ab's going to put his foot in it multiple times. I'm sure you will, absolutely. Okay, here we go. And I'm just going to go in here. Okay, cool. So that looks pretty decent as far as that goes. I still want to do something different with that cloth. Let's try a slightly bluer gray. I'm going to try that. We'll see how that goes. So we're going to go to hue. Make this 75. See how that looks. Looks a little better, but I don't like how strong that is. I have a better tool for it, I'm sure. Let's go to color. Let's try that. Hold on. What about darker? Let's do darker color. Okay, I kind of like that better. It also breaks up the clothing a little more, so it's a little more two-toned. And I think that looks pretty good. It's almost like he's wearing a hoodie under there, which is kind of what I figure he's wearing. Or them, they, in fairness. Technically, synthetics are... their gender binary is just as fluid as humans. More so, because for them, their gender identity, quote-unquote, as their perceived construct of it, is entirely built around their programming language. Which is so nuanced and so vastly diverse. General rule of thumb, synthetics use whatever pronouns they want to use. This is a general rule of thumb. There's no point in even attempting to establish something resembling like a gender identity for a lot of them, because they simply... it does not fucking apply to them in many ways. Their identity is whatever the fuck they say it is. Just like humans, for the record. But in this particular case, I just find it just endlessly, almost kind of funny that they just sort of buck that trend, just as a baseline. If you were to ask a synthetic what their pronouns would be, they'll be like, this is it. And you'll be like, okay. So if someone asks you what's on their ID, they'd be like, yeah, fuck you. People are people, not their labels. And synthetics are very much like a bucking of that trend. Okay, let's get into our clothing color here. Put this at 25%. There we go. Beautiful. That works. So now I'm going to try to do something fun. I want to do some color. I want to do some text, actually. So we're going to make sure this is the right one. Kind of want to do OCR extended. Let's see, and I'm going to go to... I have an old binary calculator from way back in the day. Way back in the day. And it works pretty well, too. Just gotta find the damn thing. I think I have it in Black Crusade? It was in one of those. Alright. That's some proper side-eye going on. Mm-hmm. It looks sassy. I hope so. I always like sassy characters. They're fun. So, let's go with, Here we go. Beautiful. And I can copy that. And this is where we're going to start getting into some fun stuff, because I want to do something interesting with this text. So we're going to go into a gradient here. There we go. We're going to go green to blue. And then I'm going to do an indigo at the other end. Actually, do a fuchsia. I think that looks pretty nice. It's a nice shade there. Okay, cool. So I can take this, duplicate it, save it. Cool. And now we're going to take the font here and shrink this down to like size... I figure size 8 or size... Yeah, we'll do size 6. Size 6. And then I'm just going to take that and compress it all onto here. Beautiful. Actually, I can just do it like that. I think that's better. It's just very long, so I'd have to shrink it down further. But we can do that. Also, we're going to undo the underlining. I don't know why it's underlined. Okay, so we're going to take that, duplicate it, and I'm going to rasterize the hell out of this. Whoop, wrong one. Take that, duplicate this one. Beautiful. Now I'm going to rasterize it. Lovely. And I can take this, and I can actually just sort of compress that onto here. In fact, let's go a step further. I'm going to use the new map tool. We're going to duplicate this. And I'm going to just disappear it. Cool. So I can take this and apply this to the interior of the clothing here. Just like that. There we are. I want to kind of move it over a little more. There we go. And then I can sort of take that, move that up here. Beautiful. And in doing this, I can sort of give myself this nice little, like, cool glowy thing. Yeah, I kind of like that. That looks nice. Cool. I can apply that, and now I can just sort of fade that. Not what I wanted to do. There we go. And I can sort of just bake that in to the actual shade of the clothing. It's very subtle, but I kind of like that. It gives it an almost iridescent sort of hue. Now I can take that, I can duplicate it again. A lot of their clothing tends to have, like, actual data feeds incorporated into it, which is not the sort of thing that most other species can actually identify or visually recognize. In fact, actually, for most of them, it's completely lost. Unless they're wearing some kind of data site device, which for a lot of synthetic worlds, it's actually highly advised you wear, you're going to miss a lot of the detail of what their species is doing, what's going on. It's very much a distinct part of their culture. Duplicate that. Take it to the other side, and I'm going to flip it. Beautiful. Slightly distorted just a hair more. Cool. And hopefully this saves properly, and I didn't just lose my... I didn't just lose it. It might crash. It might crash. Cross your fingers, everybody. I suspect it's crashed. Curses. Yep. Son of a gun. And this, my friends, more than anything, is the reason why you always save. Constantly. Son of a gun. Alright. Let's try that again. Hopefully it's got what I need there. You guys can't see yet because I'm still opening it. Okay. Damn, that sucks. I lost all that. Okay. It's fine. We can still make it work. Alright, well. We're back to where we were. Son of a bitch! It's fine. Okay. All right. Long, short. Yep, rewind. Okay. I'm going to duplicate this and duplicate this. Text. I'm going to call this text row. And I'm going to rasterize this. After I shrink it down. There you go. Perfect. Cool. Okay, so now I can take this. We have our short row. So now what I want to do, give me that. We're going to rasterize the crap out of this. By rastering it, that turns it into an actual pixel, as opposed to text, which means it can now be transformed more efficiently. I'm going to take this. We're going to duplicate this. And go from left to right. Alright. Take the whole damn thing and shrink it down. Do. Grab this tool, transform it. Okay, cool. And then I can take that, move that up. Apply. Cool. And I can shrink it down just a little bit further. Cool. So from a distance, it won't look like much. But up close, you'll see it's actually zeros and ones and zeros and ones. I'm going to leave that to anyone who wants to translate that into binary if they'd like. I'm going to leave that there for just a second. Let you guys screen cap it if you want to give it a shot. Please feel free if you want to translate it out. But it's not too bad. It's simple stuff. Okay, so. Now we've got this. We're going to take that, duplicate it out on the other side. Flip it. Save it so I don't lose my progress again. I learned! In the famous words of Kazuya Mishima, I lived, bitch. Here we go. Okay, we can take that, subtly edit that. I hope it says subscribe to OMNI's Patreon. No, but I should have. Speaking of, if anyone out there wants to support the development of Legacy and see the actual core rulebook in their hands, or better yet, get access to the exclusive beta test that's coming out in February, might I suggest you subscribe to my Patreon. Patreon.com/TheLastOmnitect is where you guys can go to support me and the work that I do. I have 3 tiers. Ampersand, Heinrich, and Atlas are on Tier 1. Tier 2 is Necronomus and Souls Rolls. And Tier 3 is the incredible Mossy the Mighty, who's currently in chat. And for each person who subscribes, and actually is a paying member, you get access to my webcomics 2 weeks early, and you'll also get exclusive access to Patreon-specific Legacy First Flight beta documents that no one else is going to get to. You will get to be part of the beta test and get your first hands on this system. And for anyone else who does join, even if you're not subscribing, you'll get access to my entire webcomic archive. The whole thing is on there from beginning to end, and also you will gain eventual access to like little other details, things like my schedule. You'll get access to various other like events that are coming up, so keep an eye out for it, and please subscribe and support me there. I am not like making money on YouTube. I'm not making much money on Twitch. In fact, I'm making no money on YouTube. I'm not even technically a partner yet. Speaking of, another way you can help support this channel, you always could, if you wanted, you know, maybe subscribe and like. Seriously, subscribe, like, comment. That helps the channel immensely so. We're tiny, we're growing. Any help you can throw my way is appreciated. Alright, that's the last spiel. We're going to get to the last part of this and close out the video. And I appreciate all of you for being so awesome. I'm going to duplicate this again. I don't like the way that one looks, so we're just going to take the long one here, duplicate it. Beautiful. Expand it just a hair. And then we're going to do the same thing. We're going to duplicate that. Take it over here. Rotate it a little bit more. And then flip it. Cool. Now I can get in here and start erasing stuff that'll be actually eclipsed by that. There we go. Do the same thing on this side. We'll do the same thing here. Yeah, synthetic clothing tends to incorporate hard light patterns and actual data streams into it, just as a matter of course. And then finally, we got the last one here. Nice. And I can turn off the other long ones and short ones here. We're saved. I can drop these down in that. Nice. And that, my friends, is a synthetic. One of the titular Children of Iron in Legacy First Flight, and the third playable species in the setting. I want to thank everyone for tuning in. It means the world for me to see everyone who's supporting and being here. You guys are the reason I'm making this game. It's been 20 years in the making, and I can't wait to get it in your hands. Keep an eye out. We have 79 days remaining before Legacy First Flight's beta comes out. So in the meantime, take care, Voyagers. Be good, and I'll see you out there.